Hello, and welcome to the Open Door Policy Show. Open Door Policy. What does that phrase make you think of? So I first heard the phrase open door policy in the office context. So it might be, your boss saying, "Hey, I've got an open door policy," meaning you can pop in there anytime. Sometimes they meant it, and sometimes they didn't. It just was a nice thing to say. And so recently on another show that I am a co-host of, CTO Lifeline, my co-host Noah, myself, and one of our guests, Adam Horner, thought it would be a great idea to provide some live coaching. And we solicited people with challenges, either ones they could send in before time. But we also had Ollie Brand, who brought us a challenge live on air. And we had a great conversation. We were able to ask a lot of questions to really properly understand the challenge that Ollie was facing. And then provide Ollie some options of things to think of, things to try, all of that sort of stuff. And it got me thinking that that could be a good opportunity on an ongoing basis. Now, not everyone has a challenge that they can't tackle themselves every single week, but it would be nice to know that there was somewhere you could go and bring a challenge and know that on the other end of it, there would be someone who was very patient, a keen listener, genuinely interested in the challenge that you were facing. And so that's what the purpose of Open Door Policy live stream show has been. So I'm your host, Daniel Walters. You may be familiar with me from something I've written or on other live streams, or this may be, the first time meeting me. Welcome to the show. And I hope that you get a lot of value out of it. So let's dig into a little bit more about how this show works. This is the very first, the premiere episode, the inaugural episode. I did a technical test of the platform last week. At that point in time, I was using the LinkedIn audio platform. And it was nice in concept. I didn't think it would quite translate once I did. And I gave it a red hot go, 30 minutes working on that platform. So I thought I would fall back to a platform I'm more familiar with, which is LinkedIn Live. This is the platform we use for CTO Lifeline, which is a show that is more structured. We plan over the course of a month. We invite guests onto. We talk with the guests about what the topic will be, and we get a bit of an outline. It's still very improvisational because the show is a live format, and we will respond to questions as we go. And so those traits will be very similar within this show. So it's a live format. If you've got questions or comments to make, just drop it into the comments on LinkedIn or YouTube, the two places that we're live streaming to. And we will feature those comments, and that will shift the conversation. The thing that's different is you will also be able to jump on as a guest as soon as the inkling comes to you. If you realize you've got a challenge or you've got something to add in onto the topic that at hand, then I will provide you a link. Now I'm going to try something which is probably not recommended, but I don't think the audience is too huge, so we will try this. Now I'm going to drop a StreamYard link in the comments. If you have a challenge, or even if you just want to drop in for a chat, whether you know me or it's your first time meeting me, feel free to use this link. So I'll just give people a couple of moments. That's hopefully that's at least reached YouTube. I'm not sure if it's gone on to LinkedIn. Let me just also put it up on the screen. So apologies if you have to hand type that because it didn't come up in the comments, but it's relatively short. So if you go to that, then you will find yourself, just right of stage for the show, and I can easily add you in for a chat. You will need a working microphone, and if you've got an external microphone, you might need a working set of headphones. Or if you've just got the inbuilt ones, then Windows ducking or whatever operating system you're using will probably take care of that, and we can get on and have a chat. Now, I primarily work with technology leaders, and in particular, in my day job, I work with executive technology leaders. But for open door policy, I'm interested to support anyone who's leading within a technology context. Now, that's not just limited to CTOs. That's not just limited to CIOs and CDOs. That's extending to software development managers. It can also extend to product managers and designers and others who needing to engage and display and be, leaderly, display leadership to be leaderly in order to do their job successfully. So we're all in the same context, and I'm happy to discuss and listen to any challenges that you're facing, and then we can talk through it. As they say, a problem. What do they say? A problem shared is a problem halved. Now, there's an audience, so it's more than just you and I. So maybe this is halved, or maybe it's quartered, or maybe it's chopped up into a lot of small pieces. I'm a big believer in the wisdom of the audience. We get very perceptive commentary and contributions from the CTO Lifeline audience, and so I know we can get the same here. And what I'm trying to achieve with this show is, well, number one, I have I think it's stronger than a hypothesis. I have a view that I'm quite confident in, that leaders in technology need more support. I think there's been a lot of support that's tailored for other roles across organizations. But for a variety of reasons, technology leadership, there's generic support available, but I think there is a need for more specialized and tailored support. Some of the challenges that technology leaders face, it takes some experience in the field to truly be able to empathize with what they're experiencing. And for my part, I have, failed at almost everything before I've succeeded. We've got our first impromptu guest. I'm going to add him to the stage. PJ, how are you doing, mate? Are you able to hear me? PJ may be just setting up his AV. I hope. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, mate. If you can't, I'll let you keep configuring. I'll try again. Oh, now I can hear some audio coming through. Can you hear me, PJ?
Oh, yep, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Oh, that's loud. That's loud and clear.
Oh,
I'm doing well, mate. This is my second live stream of the day, and so it takes a lot of energy out of you. So hopefully I don't fade before the end of this one. So I was just sharing. I'm not sure if you caught the start, but I was just sharing a bit about the idea behind this live stream and why I was doing it. So did you catch that, or
I did catch that. I did.
what do you think of the concept? Do you think that this is useful as an idea? What are the pros and cons?
No, I think it's definitely has a lot of value. Um, just bringing together knowledge from different parts of the industry and different contexts. You know, it's sort of, I think it's a good way of sort of de-risking an approach before you give it a try, and also it's outside of your company. So it's you're kind of able to test it out with people before you bring it into the closer family.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Actually, I hadn't thought of it exactly like that, but yeah, that is a good way to experience it. Yeah, I mean, when I start coaching with a CTO, often the first few sessions, they share a lot of what they were nervous about. So, often the first session, it takes, a few times to get it booked in. And then in the first session, there's often a lot of sharing about all the things that are going great, because they're worried that I'm there to tell them that everything that they're doing is wrong, and there to tell them what to do. And so I thought, by sharing in this format, it might help to demystify what is actually coaching all about, and give some illustration. So yeah, I mean, what experiences have you had with coaching, or you operating as a coach?
Yeah, I guess being involved with the kind of agile movement from the early days, right back to sort of 2000, 2001. I started in the investment banks in the UK. Even though I wasn't coaching per se, because the teams were often experimental teams. This was a brand new way of working, pretty foreign to investment banks. Relinquishing some control and decentralizing. So there was a lot of talking. There's a lot of senior people taking a little walk down the corridor, well, down to the third floor to take a look at this crazy new way of working. So even though I wasn't necessarily coaching in those days, and that was reasonably early in my work experience, there was still plenty of thinking, plenty of justifying to business people about why this way of working actually made sense, and what the value was going to be. And then I guess from there, when I after nearly 10 years, came back to New Zealand, and there was plenty of space for kind of doing the same thing. I found when I went into a new organization, it was more about not coming to the table, but creating the table. There was there was a lot of these ideas were still quite new and hadn't been thought about an awful lot. So I just sort of naturally fell into a coaching role.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Mm.
that's an important thing to note. Coaching is not limited to the domain of coaches, and it is a skill set that leaders and individuals can use to help influence or help create the space where people can test things out, or thrive, and have a open dialogue about how that's going.
Yeah, I think coach was a really useful word, and I think possibly in some ways is being overused a little bit these days.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's a gentle word,
Mm-hmm.
rather than it being top down. It's more of a, okay, we're in it together. But I've got some experience that I'd like to bring in, and I'd like to, you know, help people bring some new ideas on board. So that's nice. But I really like the concept of, leading from the middle, or leading from the inside. Really being in there, actually doing what you say you do, and leading by example.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it's a different breed of leadership. Like I haven't really, I mean, yeah, it's just a different style of leadership. I think it's very powerful, especially in technology teams, especially leading, leadership around technical practices, and the delivery of value through the kind of technical pipeline for a product software product team, or
Yeah,
company.
yeah, you're right about Coach is a software, and it's interesting. Its rise in usage, and I feel like it's a response to. I mean, I don't think it was any accident that people are assuming that you're going to engage with them in a directive manner, because that has been one of the most common ways that leadership interact with people, by not necessarily providing direction, but by giving directives, giving orders. And so I feel like coaching is a response to that, and I think you're probably right that it's probably overused as well.
Yeah, a little, but I still think it's a gentle word, and it still encapsulates some of the intent of this,
Hmm.
again, a slightly overused word, agile movement,
Hmm.
where it's about decentralization, and breaking down the hierarchy. Um,
Yeah.
so, and respecting people. Um, so, you know, less barking orders and more working alongside people to actually uncover the problems, and move forward.
So you mentioned a little bit about how you like to work with teams. Do you want to expand a bit more, like how that might look in a sort of day-to-day interaction in terms of collaborating with teams?
Yep. I mean, it is what I like to do, but it's also, in my experience, what works really well, especially with technical people. But I think the important thing is to, you know, to to be in there, and take on the risks, feel the pain, so that you can truly address, the real problems. It's
Hmm.
really easy to come in with a lack of context, and read out of a textbook. But every context has, um, subtle differences.
Hmm.
The different people, different customers, different owners of the company, different ownership structure, different size. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, typically, when start working with a company, or a business, I've spent time working with the team or teams, and uncovering, what's working really well, and what's a bottleneck or holding people back. Um, talk to stakeholders, retrospectives. Although people groan a little bit about, again, the word is almost we're a little bit worn out, but
Hmm.
it's very, very powerful for a group of people who have a stakeholder in a product, um, to be able to talk freely about what's working and what's not working. I mean, it's got to be one of the most valuable tools in continuing, and improving, the way
Hmm.
we do things. So even though the words well used, overused, possibly. I think the process is still incredibly important. So, I mean, once you've got this information, I actually like to think of change as, it's another value, delivery value. So, we put these changes on Trello board and prioritize them, and we start, we start taking action on the most important thing.
Yeah, I was going to dig into that. So you mentioned, identifying some of the bottlenecks. So how do you approach deciding on which bottleneck to focus on?
Well, to start with, to be honest, without any empirical data, which is pretty much the commonplace,
Mm-hmm.
it's just what's actually hurting people the most. What's
Mm-hmm.
actually the most painful? What stops people from wanting to come to work in the morning? I mean, it's actually a
Mm-hmm.
pretty good start, because um, at the end of the day, there's a lot of productivity just in people wanting to come to work in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, usually people have a pretty good idea of what's taking up their time, the things that they would like to see, out of the picture. And normally people want to do a good job. And if you can just take that frustration and harness it, and then overlay some experience and knowledge, you can normally come up with some pretty concrete ways
Mm-hmm.
forward.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
it's it's not there coming in as the decider. It's more, that active listening and creating opportunities for conversations around where the pain points are and having some of that bubble up to the top. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. Because without that, you don't get the buy-in. Without the
Mm-hmm.
buy-in, you'll get a superficial nod, and people take some superficial action. But when people have got skin in the game, they can see the benefits. That equals motivation, and then people take authentic, valuable steps towards a common goal, and having that expressed in a visual aid, and
Mm-hmm.
being able to together prioritize or reprioritize the actions on a regular basis, means everyone, the team or all of the stakeholders are suddenly in control of what's going on and can see what's going on.
And you mentioned the retrospective, which is just one of the means of feedback. So you can, as a group, identify something to focus on, and then try to make some progress with it. But with those feedback mechanisms, you might identify, hey, this isn't having the impact that we thought it would, or this, turns out this wasn't the problem we thought it was, or so you can adjust as you go.
Oh, 100%. And again, having a physical manifestation of those conversations, again, it means that, I think retrospectives are frustrating for people when you end up talking about the same thing over and over without a reference
Mhm,
point. So
mhm,
week one, you talk about the thing. Week two, you talk about the thing in exactly the same way. Week three, you talk about the thing. And it's like, but if you have a reference point, you go back to the thing and say, well, this is where we got to last time. You know, what progress have we made? Do we need to take another action? What did we learn from the last action? You know, Suddenly you're building knowledge and information on that point, and there's a sense of direction.
mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's been quite an evolution of ways teams put in uh, retrospectives and how they perform them. In the early days, when I was working with teams, basically in a team, so experiencing it firsthand. Uh, it was the what's working well, what's not working well, and what's puzzling us were the first three questions. Uh, and then the second part was the what are we starting, what are we stopping, what are we continuing with? So that's more on that
Yeah,
action
yeah,
side, like
mm,
so that you've got that discipline of actually following through on the things that you're saying are most important. But I've seen a lot of
yeah,
teams that just do the first bit without the second bit.
yeah, yeah. I think I think it's just important to do what fits for the team. But I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the important things that's missing from any of that is actually referring back to where you left off last time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really, really important for people to feel have that sense of movement, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore see value in having the retrospective, and then yeah,
Like closure, basically,
yeah,
closing the loop.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, at some point it'll be closed, and it might be closed. It's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna change the product so we can remove this maintenance that we have to do on it every week, or there might be some, or there's some distinct action that's taken after a bit of investigation or an experiment. Um, yeah, yeah, experimentation, another big one. That a great thing to come out of retrospectives. The action might not be to do something, but to just do some kind of experiment to decide whether to do something, and that's just as
Mm-hmm.
valid. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the big patterns I've seen is people get very attached to like the format. Like I described just one format of a retrospective, but
mm,
I think the bigger thing is like, is there a feedback loop in place? And so that could take the form of a retrospective, or might just happen in the informal conversations that happen across the desk amongst the team, or in a Slack channel. The form of it doesn't matter. What matters is whether it's happening or not. Similar with stand-up meetings, people get really attached to the stand-up meeting as opposed to like, is that form of feedback happening or not? Yeah.
absolutely. Remember, it's about people,
Mm-hmm.
not about process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
fundamentals. Mm.
That's
If
a
the
good way to
people want
put
to
it.
do it differently, just do it differently.
So I shared a little bit about the format of the show. Now, one of the things that I'm very aware of, and why this show is an experiment in its own right, is uh, so one of the frictions with coaching has been removed, and that is the cost. So this show is free, but it also is a show. That means it has an audience. So that adds in an additional bit of friction. So it may
Mm,
not be for everyone. It might be because you're worried about sharing something that is, commercial and in confidence. It may be you've got, uh, fear of public speaking. It may be other things. So it may not be for everyone. But the very fact that PJ, you've jumped on, and also in a previous episode of CTO Lifeline, we had Ollie jump on and share some challenges, is some evidence that people are willing to jump on and share. And so, yeah, the purpose of this show, which I've announced as a weekly show, is when you have a need, you can jump on. And maybe some weeks it's just me talking by myself. I'm okay with that. I'm committed for the hour. I am there. I'm available. Sometimes it may be, me and PJ, or me and someone else, or someone who's just met us online through the show, who's jumped on, and maybe you're just bored and want to chat and you want to talk tech. Then I'm happy to do that as well. Or you could bring a challenge and get what is literally hundreds of dollars of coaching value for free, or at least uh, for the price of uh, being a guest on the show. So PJ, have you had like, I know a lot of the time you're working to help people, but you're also producing value because you're in there collaborating with teams. Have there been any sort of gnarly challenges that you can talk about? Maybe thinking about ones that um, you felt like you only half solved, or you're still wrestling with, or were left sort of open. Is there anything sort of top of mind? Anything we could chew on together? We can. I was going to say, we can let it percolate and chat more generally. But I just thought I'd put that one on your radar, and then if something comes up, and that would give us a chance to do it more in a coaching context. What sort of
Okay, here's one.
Oh, you got one.
Yes, I've got a comment that I got from someone I was working with, a CIO. They didn't have a CTO. I was working to to improve the flow and reduce bugs and those types of things. And because of my iterative approach to knowledge and experimentation and understanding, I guess an attitude that follows is that nothing's ever finished. It can be reopened and readdressed because there's new information. But actually, that was found to be, well, the feedback that I got from that was a frustration around what was, and it was coined as relitigation. So, constantly reopening things that were finished and that were over, and the other person wanting to move on to the next thing, and tick it off the list. And that's really the first time I had it expressed, I think, in words, which is a bit of a gift, really, because I think this is the friction. But in the business world, when you try and bring an agile or iterative or experimental, evolutionary approach to software development, but also the improvements around the process of delivering value to the customer. So I just I never really resolved that. I kind of had to say, well, if there's new information, then I'll bring it up again. So, and it didn't land that well. So interesting to see what other people have got to say about that.
That is a really, really good topic, and I can see both sides of that topic. So we might need to break it apart into its components. So the term relitigate, there can be personality differences and cultural differences about, once something's agreed, how firm a commitment do we have to that thing? And you'll find it. I mean, it can be very different across cultures. So I'm scraping my memory banks, but I believe within Germany and I think even the Japanese culture, once something is agreed, then it's committed to. And there can be benefits there are side effects to that, but there can also be benefits to that. Everyone knows what's happening and they can coordinate more easily. But the downside is you may be less responsive to changes in the environment, or new information or other things that are moving around. So I guess you're wondering what can we do when we're in that situation?
Well, I think you might have already possibly answered the question just by talking about what you just said there. So I think actually what might have been missing is a bit of a understanding or a contract about what agreeing on something actually means in that context. And if that had been set early, then that frustration might not have got sort of unbearable. That's what I'm thinking. But yeah.
that is when I've experienced similar, and I've definitely experienced this. There were similar attitudes in a number of the companies I've worked in, both in Malaysia and here in New Zealand, where it's sort of like that high commitment to make a plan and stick to it was there. And a lot of the times I've engaged with that, it was, for instance, can we agree the thresholds of quality? Like, we talk about, you could just think about it as checking something off a list, or you could think about, like, we're either delivering a quality product that meets the aims that we set out for it, or we're falling short for it. So you can reframe some of the conversation around, like, well, you know, rather than wondering about it, we can just look at, is it healthy from a reliability point of view? Is it healthy? Are we available? Is it performant? And be able to have a conversation around, like, it's meeting what we set out to do, when it's checking all those boxes, and when you reach those things, they may happen at different times. So I mean, if you think about sales teams, they are making adjustments to process, to people, to all sorts of things, just based on how the numbers are going, and that seems very sensible. Everyone seems like, all right, well, that's the way we'll go. But when you're doing something similar in technology, it's like, no. That's not how we do things here. So yeah, there's a bit of a contradiction there, but I can understand how people arrive at that thinking. And did you manage to resolve this, or this one, is this something, has it come up again since the first time it came up?
I think it's kind of lurks. I mean, I think the gift was that this was actually verbalized quite
Mm-hmm.
well,
Yeah.
so I sort of understood it better. So since then, it's been highlighted to me. I've been more sensitive to it. So
Mm-hmm.
perhaps, but I don't think I've really. And now I think about it, possibly it would be valuable to to actually talk about it and say, well, there's a conflict here. Getting things done and evolving. The evolution never ends.
Mm-hmm.
So when can we say something's done or not done? It's an
Yeah.
interesting question. So, and it's probably a conversation to have up front. But I think I've been more aware of it, and so even though I haven't consciously had that conversation, I've just been possibly a bit gentler about how I approach it. But I don't think I've had too many,
Mm-hmm.
too many difficult conversations about it since.
You said there's an important point there, which was, like, it was a gift, like that. There's that concept of feedback being a gift. We could have
Yeah,
been puzzling around why our we weren't meeting on the expectations, but here it was, very succinctly articulated as to where the impasse was, and that gives you a starting point for, like, how can you address on that.
yeah, 100%. That's the other thing, well, around communication. It's just and I guess it meant that we had a reasonable relationship because
Mhm.
he felt that he could say it. But it's important to be able to say some of the hard things,
Mhm.
um, and find ways of being able to say them. And this is in all walks of business or just life in general.
Mhm.
Um, because if you don't, then nothing's ever going to really change.
That's
And
right.
you can't address the pain without, and that, I guess that goes back to the retrospective. It's just so good and healthy for people to air their pain points and frustrations, so that everyone can honor them and try and address them.
Yeah, and
Just to
to
help.
approach them both with graciousness, as in, like, thank you for sharing that, and then also
Yeah,
curiosity, like, oh yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it like that.
yeah,
why are you seeing it like that? Or, so that can be helpful, because then you can get to the to the core of the issue. This whole theme is also why I'm very interested in outcomes, thinking in terms of outcomes, because I'm not a huge fan, in the wrong context of doing big design up front, where you map out, what you think exactly the product is going to be, and how your customers and users are going to interact with that. And the reason being that, you're going to have many things wrong and not many opportunities to adjust that. But I am a fan of doing planning from an outcomes perspective. Like, what is the effects that we would like this product to have? If it's succeeding, what is the effect is having? How is it helping the users? How is it helping, the revenues of our company or whatever? So that sort of framing. And I feel that's another pathway into those conversations of getting on the same page about, well, what does done really look like, and you don't have to get into the implementation. You're just going to talk about what it means for them.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. What's the quote? There's only one certain thing about a plan, and that's that you won't follow it.
I like
I
that.
don't know where it's. I don't know where that's come from. But you never follow your plan. Yes, so a plan is inspirational.
That's right. There's the Mike Tyson one as well. Everyone's got a plan until you get hit in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Reality tends to have its own, its own path.
There's planning. Plans are bad. Planning is good. That's another one. That's an ex-colleague. I'm not sure where he got it from, but he used to. So that, yeah. Thank you, Christian Hope, for sharing that one. Now, I've received a few messages whilst we've been chatting away. So a few people have joined late. So let me explain a few things. There is a link that's on the screen and in the chat, which will take you straight backstage of the Open Door Policy Show. If you're up for a chat, or if you have a particular challenge that's facing you at work relating to technology, then use that link and jump on in. And this is a show with a concept, but without a plan. So I did a bit of planning, but I also am here in a purely improvisational capacity, and also a coaching capacity when you bring a challenge that we can chew into. Now, I'm Daniel Walters. If you missed that up top, on screen is PJ. So he saw the link and he jumped straight on in, and we've had a really good chat, about agility in the modern age, and feedback, and also chewed over a challenge where he was given feedback about relitigating topics, and we've talked through approaches to that. So yeah, if you've got a challenge, then feel free to use that link, jump on in, and we can have a chat. I can see something in the comments. Oh, we've got a question from the audience. Let's bring this up on stage. PJ, you happy to stick on? Do you want to help out with responding to some of these?
Yeah.
Awesome. So Mark Guadalupe, question: how do you foster a culture of trust, collaboration, autonomy, and accountability to your team? What a great question. Do you want to start, PJ?
Yeah, I'll have a go. Yeah. So accountability is an interesting one. So because it's kind of slightly a bit of a contradiction to the other things you mentioned in that question. So if you have internal accountability in the team, that will destroy collaboration and trust and inside the team, well, it will certainly work against. I think it's really important to present your team as a service to your business or to your product owner or whoever, but not to have individuals who have specific roles. So the business person comes to that one person and says, "Oh, can you do the thing? Can you do the thing?" What we want to do is have a shared responsibility that the team takes on, a shared role, and the business comes to that team. We have regular meetings. We put up bits of work that need to be done that have come up that week. We reprioritize backlogs, and then we decide on what work that team's going to do that week or over whatever period, and then we get into it. That means that the team can work together. They can work out how they want to operate internally, the inner workings. Sort of slightly hidden from the rest of the organization. The organization just knows we ask them to do something, they prioritize it, and then it just comes out the other end. And we just make sure it's done and give feedback, and then the team moves on to the next thing. So I think that's a really important point around accountability. So that's actually the first step towards creating proper collaboration within the team, because now everyone's working together, and you haven't got individuals just sort of stealing away secret bits of work or having secret conversations with secret people in secret places. And there's no paranoia, and everyone's everything's open, and the conversations with the business are happening in front of the other team members in the right meetings. So that's one element of that conversation. So fostering culture and trust, and collaboration. I think it's important that, I love teams where everyone does everything. For starters, so there's no specialness in the team. People will learn that some people are clearly more experienced in certain areas or whatever, but that's up to the team to make that decision, and the team members to make their own decision about who they'd like to be mentored, or if they'd like to be mentored or helped in certain areas. So again, let people make their own decisions about about how that works. Peer programming is really powerful in so many different ways, but one of the ways is that, again, there's no specialness, and the transfer of knowledge and know-how it just happens in a frictionless kind of non-hierarchical way. So any way that you can remove hierarchy from a team makes it more of a team. Like, hierarchy doesn't exist really in my world. In a team is a bunch of people who work together. They're at they have a common goal, and there's just no space for hierarchy. But there's a few things to have a think about.
Yeah, I think there's many layers to this, and what you laid out there, there's a few things I dialed in on. So the first one was around accountability, and I think one of the things you're describing there is accountability can often be associated with blame. So if that's part of the definition of accountability within your organization, then it can function as its own gravity and distort the behaviors of the members in the team, which can lead to the behaviors that PJ is describing about people pulling in different directions or doing things for unseen reasons and things like that. So yeah, that's a key call out. The key word for me there is trust, because if you want the other aspects, you need a degree of trust in order for collaboration to happen. you also need a degree of openness. So, I often think about it as the environment that we as leadership are cultivating. So, if we're when something goes wrong, we're blaming the individual and calling it out, and making them feel embarrassed and all things like that. The openness of those team members is going to diminish over time, and so collaboration, effective collaboration, is going to be more and more difficult to achieve, and trust will lower. And particularly in complicated environments that we as technologists work in, a lot of the things that go wrong are not not really just about humans making mistakes. That is definitely part of it, but is more about what is the system that we're all operating in. So what is leading to us making those mistakes? So maybe it was the fear of being able to give feedback to a person. You knew it was going to go wrong, or you knew some risk was there, but you were worried about offending them and worried about being open. And so you're not having those conversations. And so they might walk into it, but you may have been able to prevent it. So who's at fault in that scenario? I would say the leadership is at fault, because they're the ones cultivating the environment, and it's helping determine whether it's open, an trusting environment, or a closed and untrusting environment. So yeah. Mark, if you're listening, I'd be interested in more details about what sort of team this is. We've answered very much from a software team perspective, but in technology there can be other different types of roles or teams or different contexts. So if you've got more that you can share, because the more specific you get, the more targeted our advice and further questions can be. So feel free to share in the comments, or if you want to explain in person, feel free to jump in on the chat. Just use this link, and you can join us to get more details. Well, that was pretty cool, PJ. We've already got another question. I'm hopeful that some of our comments have been useful for Mark. We talked about the importance of feedback, Mark. Let us know. Let us know if that seems plausible or feasible in your environment. And in future weeks, if you've tried some of the ideas out and it works or doesn't work, let us know about that too. Excellent. So we shared about the concept of the show. We highlighted the natural friction there is. So we've taken away the costs, so people can try out coaching. I'm hoping to cultivate a safe environment within these 4 virtual walls of Open Door Policy Show. I guarantee to you that I am genuinely interested in your challenges. I want to understand them, and I love paying it forward and helping people, as I know PJ does too. I get a massive kick out of it, because a lot of people help me along my career. I've been doing this for 3 decades now. I've got the grey hairs to show for it. And I've learned a few things from being introspective, but I've learned a lot more from the feedback, advice, and other things that people have shared with me along the way. So another ulterior motive for me wanting to do this show is the chance to pay it forward, demystify coaching within the technology space, show people that it's not about us judging you and what you're going through, and it's not even necessarily us telling you what to do, but I believe it's mostly about asking the right questions and helping spark those aha moments that you can have, where you can work out what your options are. What can you take? What actions can you take? What can you try out? And how can you assess whether it's made the difference that you're looking for or not. So yeah, pretty cool idea for a show, isn't it, PJ?
No, it's excellent. Yeah. I think we had
Excellent.
quite a nice conversation today.
Yeah. Do you have any other parting thoughts before I do our sign off?
I think just on the topics, one thing we didn't talk about much, but is quite a big topic, is
Mm-hmm.
experimentation.
Mm.
And in terms of the the culture, it actually infects the culture, because suddenly it's okay to do something and for it not to work,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a huge shift. And if you want your team to innovate, and you want you want your team to be happy to do something and for it not to be the right answer, but the answer is that that that's not the right answer. So now you try
Mm-hmm.
something else, and that's how you that's how you find the right answer, by sometimes realizing what all the wrong answers are. And then the other thing I would say is, just in terms of leadership, it's just really important to be vulnerable, and when you make a mistake, say, "Oh, yeah, no, I think that was me." And if you're just upfront about owning your mistakes and not being perfect, that will just flow on through the team, and they're kind of interrelated with experimentation as well. But people, once you've got leaders who are okay to make, okay to own up to mistakes, or and it's okay. Well, how are we going to fix this? Let's sort it out. And you've got this experimentation going on. More and more it'll infect the culture, and you'll one thing is to create the space for people to take ownership, but the other is to create the environment so people are happy to step into it. So
Mm-hmm.
with those types of things that I just spoke about, and I'm sure there's many more, you'll have created an environment where people will want to step in. And so
Mm-hmm.
many times in coaching, I've created the space, especially when I was younger, and I got frustrated because no one wanted to do it. No one wanted to step into it. But
Mm-hmm.
there's other parts of the puzzle which I've become better at over time.
Yeah, no, the thing I love about experimentation, to pick up on your first idea there, is it's about the idea, not the individual as well. So we're assessing, did it play out the way we wanted to or not?
Mm,
So we're critiquing the idea and evolving it and improving upon it. And so that automatically is shifting away from a blame oriented approach, which is a trap that is easy to fall into. All right, such and such did the wrong thing, and it didn't,
yeah.
didn't lead to millions of dollars.
Well, the other thing that I'll hone in on there is critique. So
Mm-hmm.
we're normalizing critique as
Mm-hmm.
well, which
Yeah.
is also very important. So once you've worked with the team for a while, and you've been having these conversations, you get used to it. You get used to
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Oh, I don't think that's a good idea," or whatever. And in the end, people just no one takes any of this personally. It's just the team
Mm-hmm.
collaborating, and coming up with the collective decision.
Yeah. And
Um,
the
eh,
leadership can have a lot of power initially in those conversations.
mm,
So the responsibility to be creating that environment, at least to start, the fire, is there
mm,
with leadership, because it may be your previous actions that are creating a barrier for people operating that way.
mm,
And so if you want it to shift and change, then you're going to have to do some things differently. So I feel like all of these comments actually go back to answering Mark's question. So, Mark, I hope you're still listening. I
mhm.
hope there was some additional insights there. So, yeah, I want to. we're right on the hour, so I want to thank everyone who stuck it through from the start to beginning, or jumped in the middle, or had 10 minutes in your coffee break and dialed in. I want to thank PJ for jumping on for a chat, and I want to thank Mark for his question that led to a really terrific conversation. And so until next week, 1 p.m. to Thursday, New Zealand Daylight Time, I'll be here every week for an hour. Bring your challenges or just drop in for a chat. This has been Open Door Policy. Thanks, everyone.